All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD1100 Programming Fundamentals with C# course, I am creating a series of video presentations that are based on the PowerPoint slides for the textbook we're using for the course, that textbook being Muroc C# 7th edition. And so far I have finished chapters 1 through 3, in other words, section 1, chapters 4 through 11, in other words, section 2, and I've lectured on chapter 12, how to create and use classes. At the end of that particular lecture, or that chapter, they had this, create a basic calculator. Now I'm going to do that, but before I do, I'd like to talk a little bit more, maybe give another example or two of what this stuff is all about. I want to make sure you understand things like encapsulation, data hiding, what data abstraction is, what abstract data types are, etc. So I'd like to talk about some of that stuff. Okay, so really, again, working with just leave this up here. Working with object-oriented programming it does represent what's referred to as a paradigm shift. So what is that? A fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. So, in other words, it's a shift or a change in the way of thinking. And what happens is going into object-oriented programming and having an object-oriented programming mindset is a paradigm shift. All right, it's a shift in the way of thinking, especially from what we did in the first 11 chapters of the book. Now, object orientation uses classes. We've already talked about that. In fact, let's come in here and let's go to Wikipedia. And I'm going to put in here object-oriented programming. I don't know what this says. I really don't. I've never looked this up. All right. But it says it's a programming paradigm, all right, based on the concept of objects which contain data and code, or what we have called properties and methods, all right, in the form of fields, also known as attributes or properties, and code, also known as methods. So there's nothing right there that's new. But object orientation uses classes to encapsulate, or in other words, to wrap together the data and the methods. Now, objects have the ability, every object that we create from a class has the ability to hide its implementation. All right? That's known as information hiding. Now, typically, if you've got an application that's complex enough, you might have different types of objects communicating with one another, or the same type of object communicating with one another. Just the same way as we have, for example, just the same way as we have different people communicate with one another. Now, what we've been doing previously, all right, is we've been using what is typically referred to as procedural programming. All right. And many languages, especially a lot of older languages, are procedure oriented, where the function is the key thing. Well, in C#, like C# and Java, and a lot of object-oriented programming languages, all right, they're object-oriented, where the unit of programming is the class, not so much just the function or method. Objects are instantiated from classes, and functions or methods are encapsulated within the boundaries of classes as methods, so they can be hidden from the person using them. All right? C# programmers oftentimes concentrate on creating their own user-defined types known as classes. All right, they're also called programmer-defined types. Okay, we looked at one in the last chapter when we talked about that product class. All right, so classes in C# facilitate you being able to create what are known as abstract data types, or ADTs. These ADTs hide their implementation from people using them. Now, a problem with procedural languages is that the code is often dependent on the implementation details. So you have to know a lot more. I can go and use the object-oriented features and functionality in C# as long as I know how to work with the interface. I don't have to know the implementation. All right. So I'm going to come in here and let's see. I want to go and create a very, very simple example. And I want it to be so simple that right now I'm not even going to worry about what I'm about to create. I'm not going to worry that it is going to be, let's see, it doesn't have to be GUI. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start up. I don't need this right now. And again, I don't know if I changed it, but I'm going to say don't save. All right. Again, I am going to go and build this, but not in this lecture. I want to give you a prelude or some other stuff first. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a bunch of classes. In fact, I'm going to come in here and create a bunch of classes related to something that we all understand, which is time. Hours, minutes, and seconds. So I'm going to have a folder called time. All right. And to start with, I'm going to come in here into Visual Studio. And to keep it as simple as I can, I'm going to create a new project, but that new project is going to be a console app.NET Framework C#. And I'm going to call this time1, and I'm going to put this into the time folder or time solution. So my solution will be here, and I'm just going to call it, this one can be time1. So I'm going to have a bunch of projects, and I'm just going to call these time projects. That'll be the name of my solution, and the first project I put in there will be time1. So again, this is going to be totally non-GUI. All right, so I've got this namespace in here, and I'm going to worry about filling that in later. Okay, what I want to do first of all is I want to right mouse click on my time1, and I want to choose an add, and I'm going to go down to class here. I could either do new item and choose class, or just go down to class. Okay, and I'm going to call this class time. I'll just call it time. Okay, so it made this thing called time, and I'm going to change this from internal to public. All right, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually create a bunch of stuff in here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create my, what I refer to as my instance variables. Well, you should already be able to figure out what those will be. I'm going to have a private int that's going to represent the hour, and it'll have possible values. So the range will be 0 through 23. We're going to use military time. I'm going to have another private int that I'm going to set equal to minute, and it's going to have a range of 0 through 59. Finally, I'm going to have one more that's going to be second, and you can see how it's already figuring stuff out for me. And it's also, whoops, no, that was right. It's also going to have a range of 0 through 59. All right. Okay, so this is the way that I'm going to be able to work with time. And it's something we all can identify with, hours and minutes and seconds. All right, so let's write some constructors. So the first one I'm going to write is going to be what I refer to as my no arg constructors. Okay? And I'm going to have a public, and it'll have the name of my class, which is time. And then inside of here, I'm just going to call it set time. Okay? And if I pass nothing in, I'm just going to set the time to 0, 0, 0. Now I'm getting the error because I haven't written set time yet. So this means that if I create a time object and it has nothing passed into it, it will call the set time routine, and that set time routine will set the hours to 0, the minutes to 0, and the seconds to 0. Now there are many different ways that I could do this, but this is just the way that I'm going to do it. Again, I'm not saying right here that what I'm about to do is the best way to do it or the worst way to do it. I'm trying to come at this very slowly. All right, so let's come in here, and we're going to write, this will be the set time method. All right, and so I'm going to have here public. It won't return anything, and notice there is no return type with a constructor. That's not something that is just unique to C#. All right, any language that has a constructor in it, to my knowledge, when you set up the constructor, it does not have a return type. All right, so I'm going to put here public void set time. All right, and I'm going to put in here int hours. I'm going to put in all three of these. I'm just going to move it. Now I should be able to move this over. We don't care right now about being pretty or anything else. So I've got my hours, int minutes, and int seconds. You'll notice I did give them a little bit different name. These are hour, minute, and second. These are hours, minutes, and seconds. Did I have to do that? No. Again, there are so many different ways this could be written, just so you know that. All right, so I want to check and make sure that my hours are within range. So verify, try that again, verify that that hours are between 0 and 23. If not, default them, or default it to 0. All right, we're going to do that in just a second, but I'm going to grab this comment. And I'm also going to verify that my minutes are between 0 and 59. And if not, I'll default them to 0. And that my seconds are between 0 and 59. And if not, I'll default them to 0. All right. Now, I could do an if statement, and I could do it, would work just fine. I could say if hours less than 0 or hours greater than 59. This is totally fine to do this. I could say if that's the case, it's out of range. Out of range hours reset to 0. So I could just come in here and say hours equal 0. Totally fine. In fact, that'd be 23. And then I could go and copy this and change that 23 to a 59 and do that for seconds, for minutes, and I could do that for seconds. So in other words, I could come in here and do this. And what I'm about to show you, totally fine way to program. So minutes, oops. All right, and then finally, again, I could add it one more time. Whoops, and I could make this seconds. So this would be seconds. as with this, as with this. This would be minutes here for the comment. This would be seconds here for the comment. And this would also be seconds. Okay, totally legit way of doing this. Move that down. So there's my hours. If it's not within range, so whatever I passed in for hours, if it was not within range, set it to 0. All right, then my minutes. If it was not within range, okay, etc. You get the idea. Now, there's a faster way of doing this. And that is, rather than doing it like this, I can say, oops, so this is hour, minute, and second. So I could say hour equal, all right. So here, I can either check to see if it's within range or if it's not within range. So I'm going to say if hours are greater than or equal to 0 and the hours are less than 24, all right, greater than or equal to 0. I could say less than or equal to 23. I could do it a lot of ways. So if that's the case, it's valid, right? Okay, it's greater than or equal to 0 and it's less than that. So if that's the case, I could say hours, otherwise 0. So I've cut that down to one line. In English, I'm saying here, if the hours are between 0 and 23, then take hours and assign that to hour, which is our variable here. Otherwise, take 0 and assign it to hour, which again is the variable there. Okay, a little bit cleaner, a little bit less code, but there's nothing wrong with doing it with if statements. So I'm going to change this to minute. I'm going to change this to minutes. And make that 59. All right, so that's verifying that the minutes are within range. All right, so then finally we'll do the same thing with seconds. Try that again. So everything that says minute will now have to say second, and everything that says minutes will now have to say seconds. Whoops, not right. We'll get a little cleaner. So what have I done here? I have set up a class called time with 3 instance variables. 3 integer instance variables, one representing the hour, which has a range of 0 to 23, one representing the minute, which has a range of 0 to 59, one representing the second, which has a range of 0 to 59. All right? So I've got my no Arg constructor. I could come in here and make a full Arg constructor. So let's do that. Let's make a full Arg constructor. All right, so that'll be public time, and it'll have an int passed in for the hours, an int passed in for the minutes, and an int passed in for the seconds. Okay, now I've overloaded that method because here it is with no arguments. Here it is with all 3 of my arguments. So now I can call set time, and I can pass into this hours, minutes, and seconds. And that'll work fine. So if I pass in nothing, it's going to basically set my time with all zeros. If I pass in a valid time, it will check to make sure it's within range. And as long as it is, it'll go in and set it up. All right, I think at least, you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, but that, I'm hoping at least, makes sense. All right, so we've got that in here. let's add a couple more methods just for completeness sake. So what do we have in here? We've got our instance variables, we've got our no arg constructor, we've got our full arg constructor, and we've got our set time method so far. Okay? And again, I'm not getting any errors. They all seem like they're working fine. Let's have something where we use a universal time format, also known as military time. And we're also going to make another one that's going to have a standard time format. So in other words, as an example, this could be 23:59:59. All right? But with a standard time format, it would be something like 12:59:59. And we could even add to that an AM or a PM. Okay, so we're going to write both of those right now. And they won't be long. They'll just be a few lines each. All right. Now, in order to do this, this is going to be a method, and it's going to return a string, and we'll call this convert to universal format. And we won't have anything passed in. All right. Now, I'm getting that error because for right now, let's just return an empty string so we don't get any error. All right. So that's going to be the universal format. And underneath that, we're going to put in convert to standard format. Now, we haven't written either one of these yet. We will write them in just a couple minutes, or we'll write that one. So let's do this one first. And let's try to keep it simple. All right, so I'm going to return here. Oops, and I'm going to format it. So I'm going to return string.format, and I have to tell it what I want to format in here. So I'm going to put in 3 different things, and they will be 0, which will be formatted to decimal, to 2 decimals, or that should be really to 2 integers. We will have that, followed by a colon, all right, followed by a colon, and then another one, again followed by a colon, and then another one. And then we will put in here hour, minute, and second. We're going to go over all this stuff in just a moment. All right. In a nutshell, that's going to take and format that like this. All right. Then for this one, it'll be similar, but we have to account for, is it an AM time or is it a PM time? So I'm going to grab this, okay, and I'm going to copy it, but then I got to make some modifications to it. So right now, these two things are identical to one another. I don't want that. All right. And I'm going to say this. So I'm going to do something separate for hour and for minute and for second. And you might already be able to guess that pretty much the stuff we do for the minute, the second are going to be the same thing. All right. So for hour, I'm going to check and I'm going to say if the hour is equal to 12, or the hour is equal to 0, all right, so if it's one of those two things, I want to set the hour to 12. Otherwise, I want to set it to whatever the hour is modulo 12. Now, I've got to say here, like that. So what is this doing? If I put in a time that's 12, or I put in a time that's 0, the time should have a 12 on it. Otherwise, for 1 through 11 and for 13 through 23, what I want is I want to take that and modulo it. So if it's 6 a.m., 6 modulo 12 will give me 6. If it's 6 p.m., meaning it's 1800 hours, 1800 modulo 12 will also give me a 6. That's exactly what I want. All right, so I now have this, and for minute and second, there's really nothing I have to do here. I don't have to check those. All right, they're already in the right format. So I can put my minute here, and I can put my second here. So I can just bring this up. So I've got those. Now, there's only one other thing. I want to say AM or I want to say PM. So I'm going to put a comma here and hit enter. And I'm going to say basically, if the hour is less than 12, then question mark AM colon PM. Now wrap your arms around that because it takes a little bit of getting used to. So let's break this whole thing that we've done here. Everything we've done, let's break it down. So let's see. It's giving me an error here, and it's a thing with parentheses. So oh, I need one extra one on the end, and that is for this parenthesis here. So taking it from the top again, we've now written our time class. It has 3 instance variables. They're all integer type. An hour with a range of 0 to 23, a minute with a range of 0 to 59, and a second with a range of 0 to 59. We've got our no-arg constructor, which calls our setTime function, and it passes in 0 for the hours and minutes and seconds. We've also got, we've also got our full Arc constructor, which calls setTime, and it passes in whatever numbers we've passed into it. All right, now I'm hoping, taking a look at that at least it makes a little bit of sense. All right, again, I'm trying to do this slowly, and I'm trying to do this in a way where hopefully it will make some sense. All right, so that's our time class. But remember, right now it's not doing a flaming thing. We're going to go back in just a second to this file, our program file, and we're going to create some instances of the time class. So this is the main entry point for our application. All right, so I'm going to say here time1 equals new time. All right. And let's make we'll make a string variable here, and we'll call it output str. We'll set it equal to the empty string, and we're going to use that to, as we make these time objects, to print out. So output string is going to hold what we want to print out. So what we're going to say here is output str equals time1 dot convert to universal format, or whatever we called it. So let's try that again. Time1 dot convert to universal format. There it is. and we don't have to pass in anything to that. All right, and then I'm going to say console.writeLine output string, and we're going to see if this works. All right, I'm going to put in a read line afterwards. Now I need a console.readLine, and the way I can get around that is I can say using static system.console. There. Now I don't need to put the console dot in front of this. I can just say writeLine and readLine. Now, if this works, this should create a brand new time object, and it should print it out as 00 colon 00 colon 00. Let's see if it does. So file, save all, and let's run it. Well, it didn't like something. Input string was not in the correct format. All right, well, I'm going to look at this right now, so let's see. Return string.format, hour, minute, seconds, and of course, that is a runtime error, meaning that it did not find my error condition until I ran the program. All right, so I'm looking in here, and my universal format, convert to universal format, should return a string.format 0 D2 colon 1 D2 colon. Oh, that's what's wrong. That should say 2 colon D3. That should fix it. So let's save this and let's run it again. And there we've got our 00 colon 00 colon. Well, I don't know why that's 3 decimal place or 3 places, and that should be 2D2. Try it one more time. What I'm looking for is 00 colon 00 colon 00. And that's what I got. Okay, then let's do it again. So I'm going back to this one, and I'm going to grab everything that I put here. All right, and I'm going to do the writing the output string, and here let's put in. So we're going to say here universal format and that'll be that output string. And for this one, I'm going to say standard format, and this I will now call convert to standard format. Now, if this works, this one should say universal format with a tab 00 colon 00 colon 00. If this one works, it should say standard format colon tab 00 colon 00 colon 00 space AM, because it should grab that AM from here. I want to make sure I'm going to put a space in there just to be sure that gives me some space. All right, so let's run it. And it doesn't like something. It says must be greater than or equal to 0. So it doesn't like some. Oh, that one's still wrong too. So let's fix that. First one was wrong, I guess, since I copied it. 0, D2, 1, D2. That should be 2, D2. Hopefully, that'll fix the errors I had. Still doesn't like something. Index 0 based. Well, I'm looking. Let me look through my stuff here. Return string.format 0. Oh, this should look just like this. It's already been formatted. Colon 1 D2 colon 2 D2, and I have to account. That's why it's breaking up. 3, because this 3 that's right here is going to be AM or PM. Now let's see if it works. So I want to grab, again, do I have my read line? I do. Still doesn't like something. Wow. Whew. 0, 1D2, 2D2, space 3. So I don't need this any longer. I can put the space in there. I've already put it in. That's better. All right. So stop the run here. Okay, I've got 2 parens here. I want that ending paren to go here. All right. I want the other ending paren to go there. Okay. Let's try it again. File, save all. All right. So there's my universal format. There's my standard format. That is exactly what I want. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make some more time objects. And I'm going to print them both in both a universal way and in a standard way. So we've got those. So let's create some more times. All right. So I've got time. Let's make a time 2 equals new time. And let's put some numbers in there. So let's put in some valid ones. So I'll put in here 22. That'll be the hours. 13, that'll be the minutes. 47, and that'll be the seconds. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to copy what I had here and paste it. But now this first one I already know works. So I'm going to comment, as I get done with these, I'm going to comment them all out. So there's my first ones. Now I want this to be time 2 and time 2. Now if this works, this should say 22:13:47. Then in the standard format, it should say, all right, 10:13:47 space PM. And I am going to come back in here and I'm going to put in a \n here and a \n here. All right. So this will be make no arg constructor check. All right. This will be make full arg, and I'll put in here valid constructor check. All right. And in just a moment, we're going to make one more of these. And we're going to put in here time 3, and this is going to be invalid. So I'm going to try to set a time, and I'm going to put in here 100, 200, and 300. Don't worry, those aren't going to run yet. But now we just want to run this one. So I'm going to save this, run it again, and you'll notice I get exactly what I told you. My universal format, 22:13:47, my standard 10:13:47 with a PM. All right. So let's run it one more time. So again, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to copy these. And I'm going to grab the ones I just did and comment those out. And this will be time 3. Now we put in an invalid time for hours, for minutes, and for seconds. All right. So they should print just like the first one did. It should say zeros for all of them, and then 00:00:00, 12:00 a.m. So let's see if that works. All right, and I guess I was wrong there. That's 12 a.m. Okay. So let's try, we're going to make 3 more of these. One with just an invalid hours, one with just an invalid minutes, and one with an invalid seconds to make sure that it is resetting just those fields that are invalid. I'm going to say invalid all here. All right, now I can comment this out. Well, I can just, let me copy it, and then I'll comment it out. All right, so I can comment this out. And now I'm going to come in here and do another time. And this will be time 4, and it will have invalid hours. So that's the hours. Here's the minutes. Here's the seconds. All right, so invalid, valid, and valid. So let's check that one. And you'll notice it reset that, but it kept the 20 and it kept the 30. All right, so that works. Let's do it again. Let's comment these out. And this one will be an invalid minutes. We'll make that 10. We'll make that 200. And this will, of course, have to become 5. So valid, invalid, valid. All right. So this we want to change to 5s. And see if that works. And you can see valid, invalid, valid. So that all works. Let's do one more. We'll make it times 6. And we'll have invalid seconds. So this will be 300. We'll make that 20 again. Let's make this 20 as well. And this will be times 6. And then finally, we're going to copy this. We're going to comment out the one for time 5. There we go. And change this to times 6. Run that. And again, valid, valid. Okay. Did I put a 30 in there? I meant to put in a 300. Let's try that again. Yep. That should be 300. So valid, valid, reset it to 0. Valid, valid, reset it to 0. Everything, as far as I can tell, everything that's in here right now appears to be working. All right, everybody hear me? Everything that we've got in here as of right now, it all appears to be working. Okay, so let's see. Now, one thing about this, you've heard this before. All right, you have heard this before, and that is, if we go back to here, these are private. Okay, why does that matter? Well, if I go into here and I try to access hour or minute or second, let's see what happens. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I just did that time 1, right? So can I come in here and say time 1 dot hour equals 23? Notice it's giving me an error. I'm going to try it with minute, and I'm going to say that equals 40, and I'm going to try it with second. I don't know what happened there, but it was something I did. So I'm going to try again with second. So time1 dot second equals 33. I just made that up. I don't care what it is. The point is, look at all these. It says time hour is inaccessible due to its protection level. Because of the fact I made it private in there, I can't utilize it in here. What if I went back and changed all of these from private to public? Again, that's not recommended, but I just want to show you. So what if I do that? So these are now all public. Let me do a file, save all, and let me go back to here. Notice now I can change them. This is a very, pardon my French, but my friend Doug used to say, a piss-poor programming practice. By making these public in here, they are now accessible and changeable outside of the class in which they're defined. You should never, ever allow that to happen. These should be private and private and private. Oops. Like that. And once we do that and save, our errors are back again. Okay? And I just want to make sure that you see that, because I'm trying to have you learn to do this the right way and not the wrong way. All right. Let's see. I'm just looking through my notes here. All right. Now, with what I'm showing you, there are other ways of doing this than the way I'm showing you. There are other ways of doing this, all right, as opposed to the way I showed you. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to leave this all right here, okay? And I'm going to come back to here, and I've got my set time. And after set time, I'm going to come in, and I'm going to write a set time 2, okay? So this is set time method. And underneath that, I'm going to write a set time 2 method. All right, and all I'm trying to do here is just demonstrate a few things for you. That's all. So now in here, I'm going to say my public. It's going to look just the same as this. All right, so I'm going to put in here public void set time 2. It's again going to have passed into it int hours, int minutes, and int seconds. All right, I need my curly, and notice there's nothing in there, but it's not giving me any errors. All right. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and say hour. No, I want it to look like that. Let's see if it'll take this. Equal hours. Now, it may not like what I'm about to do, so hour is going to be equal to hours. Don't worry, I'm getting an error. We'll fix that in a minute. All right, and then we want to say minutes equals minutes, and I'll fix that in a second. And finally, seconds, second equal seconds. Now, again, I'm not done. and I might be confusing you now, which again is not my plan. I'm at 50 minutes, so as I write this one, let me write this and put it in the next lesson. Okay, I'll be right back.